Welcome to the Sisters with Swords podcast, where we explore God's Word and discover His design for women as we wield our weapons of warfare on the battlefield of everyday life. We're your hosts, Holly Knight and Janie Burkett. Hey there, sisters, and welcome to another episode of Sisters with Swords. We're in our fourth week of Esther, and it's going to get fun. We're getting fun today.
Yay.
This is where we get a lot of some of the famous quotes from Esther that we know and love. And of course, we're going to be digging a little bit more into the background here. But, before we get into all of this, Janie, I have a phrase for you that I feel like needs to become your mantra. And I've been thinking about it lately.
I'm scared.
And here, this is the phrase for you. Are you ready?
I don't think so.
Okay. Let them. Repeat after me. Let them.
I don't know if I want to do that.
Just let them. So this is the energy we're going to take through the rest of 2025. It's let them energy. Okay? And you know where I got this? Mel Robbins.
Oh, okay.
She's saying, look, if people want to be idiots, if people want to be narcissists.
I knew this is where this was going. Let them.
Let them. Just let them. But I want you to really take a hold of this for your children.
Oh.
Just let them. Like last night, I was making dinner for your family. I was at your house.
Yeah.
Your boys were just running amok. And there was one point where I thought you were going to come unglued. Like you couldn't handle all of the energy in the room.
It's so much, though.
Yeah, but they're little boys.
I know.
And you have to let them. They're little boys. Just let them.
It's so much noise.
Yeah. And it's going to be. Like, it's not going to get quieter. I need you to know that.
No, but you just have to understand, like, I'm doing so much right now.
Yes, I know.
With the business and, then, with their schooling and stuff like that. And, obviously with the house. And then they're running around making all of their Spider-Man noises.
Yeah.
And playing video games, and it's loud in the video games.
Yeah.
And it's just so much noise. I need something to turn off.
Yeah. So I feel like in that moment, that's when you turn you off.
What?
And you go to a room.
I don't even remember.
And just let them.
What happened?
Well, it was like Banner specifically. He was doing something and you were just like, you could not handle it. And I was sitting on the couch because everything was in the oven. I was waiting for everything to get done. And Jake was in the kitchen and you just said, I can't even remember what you said, but you were just like, oh, I cannot take it. And Jake and I looked at each other like, and Jake goes, he's a little boy. Like, what do you expect from him? And it's like, yeah, just let him.
Okay. Well, Banner is probably is the child most like me. I don't know. He's
very particular.
He is very particular.
He needs everything to be just so.
I mean, just so.
And if it isn't just so,
an all-out fit. And also, like, any small injury,
yeah,
is
basically he's lost a limb.
Call 911.
Yeah.
And last night, you weren't there for this. Bradley was. He starts screaming bloody murder upstairs.
Yeah.
And so he starts, mommy. And I ignore him and I just go, James. I start yelling up at James. I go, James, is Banner actually hurt? And he was like, no. I was like, okay, this is what I need to know. Then Banner, shut up.
Right.
I can't with your overreactive crying.
Yeah.
Like, are we really? Because it's the same cry. It's the same cry.
It's the same cry if someone looks at him the wrong way or if he smashed his hand in the door.
Right.
He's
it's
the same cry. Yeah.
It's the same level of intensity. So it's not like, oh, well, don't you know your children's cry? Yes, except Banner's.
Yeah.
All of the others, I can tell. Everyone can tell.
Yeah.
Especially Boone.
Yeah.
Boone's the worst fake crier.
It's so great. And when he starts fake crying, I go in with him. Oh, baby, what happened to my boonie? Oh, your mommy wouldn't give you a sucker? Your mommy wouldn't give you that candy? Oh, come here. Let Aunt Holly hold you.
How many of you guys with toddlers want Aunt Holly to come to your house?
Do you know? And I am the best because, yeah, I've been there, done that. I survived those toddler days. And so now I am just living my best life as Aunt Holly. Just, what do you want? You want some
ruining my children.
You want some chocolate milk? Come here. Aunt Holly will get it for you.
But that is the nice thing about James upstairs. James, is there blood? Do I need to like call 911? No? Okay, then Banner, pipe down.
Yeah.
And as soon as I say that, he goes, "Okay, mommy." Like, I mean, it's all out. I've lost a limb. Call 911. This could be it.
Yeah.
This is how I perish. You know,
If I perish, I perish.
Like, this is the all out tears and fits.
Yeah.
And then I just go, "Banner, if I come up there, you're going to have a consequence. Like, I'm not here to entertain this."
Yeah.
And okay, mommy.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like you need a little bit more let them energy in your life. Let me explain to you how I've incorporated let them energy into my life. And because this is my parenting philosophy. Who are we with the other day? Was it Jenna or Crystal or someone was like, Holly, I need to just learn how to chill like you. And I'm like, well, it's taken a while. My oldest turns 20 next month. So it's taken 2 decades of learning how to just let them. 2 decades. But I'm learning to just let them. So we have this like, I guess, banister or alcove above our entry. The entry in our home.
Oh, yeah.
Like in at Christmas time, I'll get up on a ladder and put like a Christmas tree up there because there's a window and you can see out. It's
like a ledge.
It's like a ledge
But
above
it's
the
just-
front door.
But it's not meant to be accessible.
No, like you go up there and you put a Christmas tree, like you put decorations up there and you can see out the window, like they're whatever.
But it's only accessible via a very tall ladder.
A very tall ladder because they're very high ceilings and this ledge is way up there. Well, I come home one day from I don't know where, and James has put a mattress up there. He has made a full bed.
And there is an outlet up there.
There's an outlet up there so you can plug in your Christmas tree lights. So he's made a bed up there, sheets, pillows, blankets, a mattress up there. Where did he get the mattress? Don't know.
Where indeed did he get the mattress?
Don't know. I think it might be like the mattress topper from his bed, like, you know, the thick ones. So he put it up there, made up a bed. He found a TV in the garage that we weren't using, took that up the ladder, plugged in his Xbox, and that's where he sits to get away from everybody. And I said, you know what? I'm going to let him. Because, you know, why not? So there's some let them energy for you. Like
that sounds like great let them energy.
Yeah.
Because it's not rowdy and rambunctious.
No, but it does involve, like, I have to once a week, like, Bud, clean out whatever you got up there. Because he takes all the snacks and it's a war zone up there. But, you know, we just let them. Now, here is where the let them energy has bit me in the butt.
Is it like a, Home Depot shopping cart?
No, let them. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm just, if it's not illegal, just, let them. So Harper, my middle daughter, she will be 16 this summer.
Yeah.
She loves ear piercings. And for her 15th birthday, she wanted to get a second and third hole plus her cartilage up here pierced, which Janie, you tried your darndest to talk her out of because you had a traumatic experience in high school.
It wasn't that traumatic. I was just trying to make it sound more traumatic in case maybe that would help your cause. See, I'm trying to help you with your case. Do you see how that works?
Yeah. Instead of like, no,
Yeah.
I'll take you. Look,
Right.
I've got a needle right here. Let me do it.
Correct.
Yeah.
I could have done that.
Yeah.
But I was trying to help a sister out.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, I got my cartilage pierced in high school. Hurt like the dickens.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to tell, I'm like, it's not like your earlobe. Your earlobe is kind of like, is a pinch maybe, and then it goes away literally in 3 seconds. I was like, is not that. And the cartilage, very painful. You're not gonna survive whatever. This will be how you end. And it didn't. She didn't buy it.
Well, that's because you got yours done at like a tattoo parlor on Pearl Street in Boulder.
Yeah.
Colorado.
Yeah.
On a freedom weekend with our church,
yeah.
with the pastor's daughter. The pastor's daughter and the worship pastor's daughter went together to get their cartilage pierced. Didn't tell the parents, and that was your rebellion.
Yep.
Well, so for Harper and I really had to do some convincing with Bradley to let her get her cartilage pierced because he is just so straight and narrow, and black and white, by the book, just.
Cartilage is not exactly like a tongue piercing.
Right. But he was still like,
or like a lip ring.
That's too many holes in your ears, and we went.
How many holes in your ear is biblical?
Right, exactly. What's the age of accountability? Like, let's just take it back to that. And can you lose your salvation over this? Like all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And same thing happened with when Ava wanted to get a tattoo. It was like, okay, they all know to come ask me and don't talk to their dad about it because their dad's going to be like, nope, we're not tattooing our bodies. We're not doing all this. But Harper was, and I'm like, I think ear piercings are cute. Like, yeah, let's go do that. So I worked on Bradley. We got him to say yes. I took Harper to get all these holes in her ears for her 15th birthday. And then this past weekend, she's got this sweet girl that's one of her best friends, and she was at her house for the weekend, and Bradley was out of town, and Harper comes back back to the house and walks into my room and shows me her ears and goes, Mom, look at how cute this is. And she has, and I don't know how to even describe it for those of you who are listening, but like the inside of your ear, like the inside cartilage of your ear, like before you go
like not
into
the top edge.
No, like the inside cartilage of your ear before you go into your eardrum. She had gotten that pierced, and there was this huge like silver sparkly flower earring on the inside of both of her ears that she had went and had pierced. And she walked in and she was like, Mom, look at these. And I think because I have had so much let them energy in the past, she thought I was going to again have let them energy for this. And I did not. No. I was like, what? She's not even 16 yet. And I'm like, how did you go get this done? Where did you get it? Who approved this? Who signed off for you? Because you have to be 18 to get this done.
Yeah, these are all my questions.
So many questions. Like, how are you coming back to my house with a very specific part of your ear?
With an extra hole in your
pierced?
body. 2 extra holes.
Like, and why did you not talk to me about this before? Like, my kids talk to me about all this kind of stuff. Again, because I have let them energy. Yeah. Like, I will let you, and I will help you lobby your father for permission. Like, I'm on your side. Let's do this. If it's not illegal, if it's not going to kill you, let's do it. And so I'm like, why would you do this without talking to me? And that's serious. So anyways, my reaction was not what she was expecting. She started crying. She's like, I'm so sorry. Do you want me to take it out? Like, I'll take it out, Mom. And I'm like, no, you can't take it out. Then now we're going to get
an infected.
And now what? We're going to have to chop your ears off.
Right.
So, but I was like, where did you go?
You have to be 18.
Where did you go to get this?
You're not 18. So who signed off?
Her friend pierced it at her house. She had a piercing mechanism, and they did an in-home piercing.
No.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even an adult that did it?
No. It was another 15-year-old who pierced the inside of my 15-year-old's ears. So, and then she came home so excited, wanting to show me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. Then, okay, so again, Bradley was out of town.
What did he say when he got home?
Well, I didn't tell him. And mainly because I forgot, like, to be honest with you, like once I got over my initial shock, I was like, okay, it's another hole in her ear, whatever, we're all gonna survive. And I forgot to tell him. So he came home, and yesterday morning, he Harper was asking me to do something, permission to do something, and I was like, yeah, that sounds fine, you can do that. And Bradley goes, oh yeah, just like you let her put a new hole in her ear? He said that to me. And I go, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
Back it up. I did not let her do that.
Yeah.
I said, she did that. And I said, did she show you her earrings, babe? And he goes, no, I saw them myself. And I was like, oh, wow. Look at that. Another hole in your ear. And Harper was just like, yeah, isn't it so cute? And then scampered off. And so he obviously and rightly assumed that I took her to do that or let her do that. And so I was giving her permission to do something else. And he just very passively aggressively said, oh, yeah, just like you let her put another hole in her ear. And I said, oh, back it up. Back it all the way up, because I didn't let her. Let me tell you how this went down.
What did he say?
He was like, oh my God. He was shocked like I was. And then he goes, here's what I'm telling. He goes, Holly, no more piercings. And I said, yeah, I'm tracking with you, BK.
Yeah.
We're tracking together. No more piercings. And he goes, in fact, I'm going to tell her if she gets another piercing, I'm not taking her to get her driver's license. She will not drive. She will not be able to drive. And I said, do what you need to do. And that's where the let them energy got me with my daughter Harper.
So you just navigated your let them energy from Harper to Bradley.
Yeah. Yeah. And now Bradley is the opposite of let them energy.
Right.
I let them. Bradley does not let anyone do anything. And so anyway, so there is a balance there is all I'm saying, to let them, Janie. But I feel like come on, just let your kids, just let them.
It's just so, listen, this is going to sound so bad. Please don't put this on the Instagrams.
Okay. Promise.
It's probably going on the Instagrams. I'm not even so much, I'm concerned with the kids and what it's going to do for me. So
Right.
like, for example, if the let them is go make a massive mess that I then have to clean up later, it's a no. I don't have time for that.
Sure.
If the let them is make more noise while other noise is going on, i.e. the video games, the video games they're playing, it's like psh, psh, pure, pure.
And also they're making these noises with their mouths.
They're making these noises
simultaneously.
And then, somebody's got some music going on an iPad or something. And I'm like, I can't, it's the overstimulation.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
So mostly my let them has to do with me, not them.
Of course. And it has to do with, you just need a break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I understand that. But I'm going to help you just loosen up and just be like, okay, they're alive.
I do.
Everyone's healthy. Yeah, the house is a mess. Yeah, it's loud.
Yeah.
But okay, just let them. And it's going to be okay. I really feel like. I feel like you're going to get there eventually.
I'm so tired.
I know. That's why you just have to let them. That's what me too. I am also tired. There's a shenanigan under my roof every other day. And, it just is what it is when you've got 20,000 children. So, you know who had the opposite of let them energy?
Coco.
Well, yeah, our mother. We weren't allowed to do anything. I was going to say Esther.
Oh.
I was going to bring it back to the lesson.
Okay.
But now explain, elaborate.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, for us, apparently, just found out recently, She had the let them energy with our little brother Jacob.
Oh, he got to do anything and everything he wanted.
And we had, the siblings out together, just the three of us at Christmas time.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, did you guys know that I would just go roam the mountains for hours as like a 10-year-old kid, like completely unsupervised?
With the dog.
With the dog. I mean, and I'm talking mountains.
We lived in the mountains.
Like bears, wildcats,
Mountain lions.
Elk. Yes.
We were up in the mountains.
Yes. And, not properties stacked on top of each other.
We had acres.
Yes.
We had a pond.
So he just go roaming around and, of course, no cell phone or beeper.
No, we weren't tracking. There was no Life 360.
And we were like, Holly
what?
and I both like, no, we did not know this was happening.
Wasn't there a woman on a horse that he like got on the horse with the woman and just went?
Yeah.
Like when he was 8, 9, 10 years old, we're like, what? I mean, I would die if one of my kids, well, no, I would let James. He would be fine. Yeah, go. Take the dog, go roam.
Now he's 14.
Yeah.
When he was 8 or 9.
Well, we lived in New York. And
right. But still. No.
Yeah. That is crazy. But our parents let Jacob do everything.
Yeah.
He was allowed to do everything we were never allowed to do.
Yeah.
Because he was a favorite. Mm-hmm. And we weren't allowed to, wear shorts above our knees.
Yeah. Show our shoulders.
Oh, no, because our shoulders made boys think about sex. That's what we were told.
Yeah.
Definitely no 2-piece swimsuits.
No.
Oh. No, we were wearing 1-piece Speedos like we were in the Olympics.
That's right. Which are the least
ugliest,
flattering swimsuits of all time.
Yeah.
If you have no chest to begin with, they make you look like you have less than no chest.
Yeah. I mean,
who made those? They're the worst.
I don't know.
Least flattering swimsuit of all time.
We had it rough. And so maybe that's where part of my let them energy has come from. I'm like, I wasn't allowed to do anything growing up. I'm going to let my kids do anything and everything they want. And we're going to see how that turns out. Jury's still out. And also, I'm not writing a parenting book anytime soon. I feel like I have to really repeat myself here. Do not take parenting advice from me. Are my kids amazing? Yes, they are. Do they love the Lord? About half of them do. And we're getting there on the other half, okay?
And that's 2.5.
Yeah.
2.5 of her kids love the Lord.
We're getting there. So far, no teen pregnancies, okay?
Plus.
Yeah, just, again, not writing a parenting...
No one's been arrested?
No, not yet.
Almost. I feel like that one's going to happen.
That probably will happen. No one's been arrested. No teen pregnancies. Half of my kids love the Lord, and
2.5 of them.
We do now. Do we have tattoos and piercings? We do. But
the tattoos and the older ones, and now we're going to stop on the piercings now.
We've had enough of the piercings.
Yeah.
Per my husband, and I'm a very submissive wife. So just give me another decade to let you know how this is going, and then I might write a parenting book, but not now. Okay? All right. So let's get to Esther. We are on Esther chapter 4, and this is where it starts to get fun. This is where we get into the narrative that we all know and love about Esther standing in the gap for her fellow Jews. And so this is fun. This is where we get, one of the most famous verses, not only in the book of Esther, but really in the Bible. One of the most famous quotes by a woman, I would say. And I can't wait to get there. So Janie, read Esther chapter 4, s'il vous plaît.
When Mordecai learned all that had occurred, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, went into the middle of the city and cried loudly and bitterly. He went only as far as the king's gate, since the law prohibited anyone wearing sackcloth from entering the king's gate. There was great mourning among the Jewish people in every province where the king's command and edict came. They fasted, wept, and lamented, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. Esther's female servants and her eunuchs came and reported the news to her, and the queen was overcome with fear. She sent clothes for Mordecai to wear so that he would take off his sackcloth, but he did not accept them. Esther summoned Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs who attended her, and dispatched him to Mordecai to learn what he was doing and why. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the city square in front of the king's gate. Mordecai told him everything that had happened, as well as the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay the royal treasury for the slaughter of the Jews. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa, ordering their destruction, so that Hathach might show it to Esther, explain it to her, and command her to approach the king, implore his favor, and plead with him personally for her people. Hathach came and repeated Mordecai's response to Esther. Esther spoke to Hathach and commanded him to tell Mordecai, all the royal officials and the people of the royal provinces know that one law applies to every man or woman who approaches the king in the inner courtyard and who has not been summoned, the death penalty, unless the king extends the gold scepter, allowing the person to live. I have not been summoned to appear before the king for the last 30 days. Esther's response was reported to Mordecai. Mordecai told the messenger to reply to Esther, don't think that you will escape the fate of all the Jews because you are in the king's palace. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place, but you and your father's family will be destroyed. Who knows, perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Go and assemble all the Jews who can be found in Susa and fast for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my female servants will also fast in the same way. After that, I will go to the king, even if it is against the law. If I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went and did everything Esther had commanded him.
So this chapter starts, of course, where chapter 3 ended, which, if you'll remember last week's lesson, in chapter 3, Haman was elevated and given royal significance within Xerxes' courts, even though Mordecai was the one that had uncovered the murder plot. But Haman was honored, and everyone was supposed to bow to him. Mordecai refused to bow to him. Haman, being an Agagite, which came from the Amalekites. We learned about the generations, the history of the animosity between the Israelites and the Amalekites. And so Haman hated Jews. Hatred of the Jews was in his blood. It was in his bones. And so he didn't want to just punish Mordecai. He wanted to punish all of the Jews. He wanted to kill them, annihilate them. He came up with this insane amount of money that he was going to pay to the king in order to annihilate all the Jews. The king gave Haman his signet ring, said, do what you will do. Haman wrote this edict, sealed it with the king's ring, sent it to all 127 provinces in Persia, that on this day, they cast the lots, and the lot landed about a full year after the lot was cast. And on this date, a year from now, we're going to murder every Jew in the land of Persia. And this decree was sent out to all 127 provinces in the land of Persia, and it threw everyone into a frenzy. All of the Jews within Susa are like, what is happening? There was mass chaos, mass pandemonium. And then we ended chapter 3 with Xerxes and Haman having a happy hour. Like, isn't this cool? Come, let's have a drink. Or 4 or 5. And that's how we ended chapter 3. And then it says, when Mordecai learned in chapter 4, verse 1, all that had occurred, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, went into the middle of the city and cried bitterly. So sackcloth and ashes is something that you'll see brought up time and time again in the Word of God. The sackcloth refers to a sack with the component material of poor quality goat or camel hair. It is coarse, rough, and thick. It is used as a dramatic way to demonstrate mourning and despair. Sackcloth was a symbol of mourning, especially for the dead. And we know here that the sackcloth, Mordecai is putting on the sackcloth signifying imminent death, because a death decree had just been given. Ashes are a sign of grief or mourning as well. There is a scholar named Mattoon, and he says this was a symbol of humility and acknowledged that we come from the dust of the earth. In Genesis 18:27, Abraham's statement was that he was but dust and ashes. And that was a declaration of his recognition of his humility in the presence of the Lord. Job had a similar sense of humiliation. In Job chapter 42, verses 5 and 6, he said, I repent and dust and ashes. Upon not just hearing, but now seeing the Lord. So he saw how small he was, how humble and he was in the presence of the Lord, and he said, I have to repent in dust and ashes. So in the Near East, it was common to dramatically demonstrate one's grief. Mordecai was clearly demonstrating his grief in this situation. He wanted everyone to know, I'm grieving. So in this ancient Near East culture, they were all about demonstrating how they were feeling. If there was jubilation, they were throwing a party, they were dancing in the streets, just like David danced when the Ark of the Covenant was brought back to the temple. Likewise, with mourning, they are going to do something very visible, something that we would call maybe dramatic, something loud, as something that everyone would notice because they wanted to let you know, I am grieving. So Mordecai is doing just that. After hearing this decree that all of the Jews are going to be annihilated, he goes into very public mourning. In verse 2, we see he went only as far as the king's gate, since the law prohibited anyone wearing sackcloth from entering the king's gate. So we read in Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, and I'm not going to read it right now, but it reminds us that anyone who entered the king's presence was expected to have a cheerful countenance. So he was not able to go into the king's gate or past the king's gate because he was mourning. And the kings of Persia at this time, we would not allow you into my presence if you're sad. I mean, you think about that. Anyone has a grievance, anyone has something they need the king to handle. You're sad, you've lost someone dear to you, you've got a dispute over land, whatever it is, and you go to see the king, you better put on a happy face. I don't care how sad you are. You cannot be sad in the king's presence. You could only have a cheerful disposition and a cheerful countenance. Therefore, Mordecai was not able to go past the king's gate. Verse 3, there was a great mourning among the Jewish people in every province where the king's command and edict came. They fasted, wept, and lamented, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So now it's not just Mordecai that's being dramatic. It's all of the Jews. They have figured out, wow, there's someone who really hates us. One guy named Haman who really hates us. But he's just powerful enough. And he has the ear of the king and the king's signet ring. This one evil man is powerful enough to declare the extermination of an entire race. So now the entire Jewish population is mourning. They're in sackcloth and ashes. And this would be from India to Ethiopia. There was mourning, fasting, and weeping and wailing among what is estimated, hear me now, to have been 15 million Jews.
Wow.
15 million Jews in Persia. One man got angry at another man, Mordecai, and had the power to declare genocide against 15 million people. That is wild.
Yeah.
So we get to verse 4, and now we see Esther enter the picture here. So Esther's female servants and her eunuchs came and reported the news to her, and the queen was overcome with fear. She sent clothes for Mordecai to wear so that he would take off his sackcloth, but he did not accept them. So Esther clearly trusted her eunuchs and her maidservants and willingly used them to relay information back and forth to Mordecai. The queen was so isolated from the general affairs of the kingdom within her harem that she knew nothing of the decree that had sent Susa into a tizzy. There was no newspapers. There was no CNN, Fox News. There was no Twitter. There was no TikTok. There was no way for her to have news from outside the palace walls unless someone trusted within her harem or within her employ, such as her maidservants or her eunuchs, could get this information to her. She was extremely secluded in the palace. She did not leave the palace walls. She was ignorant as to what was going on outside the palace walls. So she would not have known about this decree from Haman with the king's signet ring on it. And what's really important here that I want to point out, she heard that Mordecai was very visibly and audibly demonstrating grief outside of the king's gate, was in his sackcloth and ashes. And when she heard that, her immediate response was to send clothes with her eunuch for him to change out of these clothes and essentially to stop making a spectacle of himself. She didn't understand why he was doing this, what everything was about. All she knew is that she didn't want him to embarrass himself or cause a scene. And so her first reaction was to send clothes. But Mordecai refused the clothes. And this is such an important part right here, okay? Here we see that Mordecai's refusal of these clothes from Esther is tantamount. His refusal indeed was another small providential provision of Jehovah. Again, we don't see God's name mentioned here at all, but we see all these little chess moves and little occurrences that work together to bring about God's ultimate plan in this story. And this is one of them. Mordecai's refusing of the clothes from Esther is one of these providential chess pieces, chess moves that God is making. Because had Mordecai accepted the clothing, Esther may not have sent her trusted servant Hathach. Had the eunuch returned with a report that Mordecai accepted the new wardrobe, Esther may have been content to let the matter rest. And as secluded as she was from the outside world, she might not have discovered Haman's evil plot. Instead, Mordecai's refusal prompted Esther to seek further communication, which was vital in a day that they could not simply send a text message. So Mordecai's refusal of these clothing, it was essentially like a red flag to Esther. Why is he refusing this clothing? What is actually going on? So she gets her eunuch involved and starts going back and forth, communicating. Again, Mordecai was not invited into the harem, her harem, and would not have been invited into the harem. So only eunuchs, her maidservants, and the women who served her were invited into her quarters. So even though she was related to Mordecai, he was not invited. So in verse 5, we meet this man named Hathach, which who knows if we're actually pronouncing that right. But he is one of the king's eunuchs that attended Esther. And he must have been a very trusted man. And he was the one that was dispatched to Mordecai to learn what he was doing and why. So the name Hathach means good in Hebrew or Persian. In conveying the message from Esther to Mordecai, and at this time, Mordecai was known to be Jewish, okay? Hathach would have become aware of the fact that Esther was also Jewish. So now he was privy to some very confidential, classified information as to Esther's nationality, which no one at this time knew. The king did not know. Haman did not know. No one knew Esther's nationality. The theologian named Wiersbe says this: I doubt that Hathach realized what an important part he was playing in God's plan to defeat Haman and save the Jews. So often in the work of the Lord, he uses obscure people to accomplish important tasks. What was the name of the lad who gave Jesus his loaves and fishes? Who were the men who rescued Paul by lifting him over that Damascus wall in a blanket? What was
Basket.
the basket? I said blanket. Thank you. Who lifting him over the Damascus wall in a basket? What was the name of the little servant girl who told Naaman to go see the prophet? We don't know. But God used these people to accomplish his purposes. As great doors can swing upon small hinges, so great events can turn upon the deeds of small and sometimes anonymous people. So in the vast story of Esther here, this eunuch, Hathach, however you want to say it, seems like a small role in a much grander story. But again, just as we just read, large doors swing on small hinges. And this eunuch's ability to be a faithful servant to Esther, to be discreet, to keep confidential things confidential, really was a hinge that this great door of God saving the Jews turned on. And so even though he seems small, boy, he was significant. And we do know his name. A lot of these people, we don't know their names in biblical history, but we know his name. And so he's just someone to emulate. You might think you're playing a small part in something, but we don't know the weight that the small part that we have carries.
Yeah.
And so it's our job to be faithful. And to keep confidential things confidential, but to relay truth when needed to. Okay, so verse 6, we read, Esther summoned that was verse 5. Verse 6, so Hathach went out to Mordecai in the city square in front of the king's gate. Remember, he couldn't go into the king's gate. He could only be in front of it in his sackcloth and ashes. But here's something very interesting that I found out. So archaeologists, and you'll remember, I think it was in the first chapter of Esther, we talked about how the fortress of Susa has actually been excavated by archaeologists. And so we know exactly when all of this took place. So archaeologists have uncovered the King's Gate of Susa, a large building. It was 131 feet by 92 feet with a central room of 69 square feet. The discovery that the gate opened onto a city square corroborates the accuracy of the details such as that given in this verse. So again, we have science, we have archaeology, we have history that's proving that the facts of this book and all of the books of the Bible, but that this story is just really historically accurate. And all of the details given in it are true. Verse 7, Mordecai told him everything, this is Hathach, that had happened, as well as the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay the royal treasury for the slaughter of the Jews. So this particular detail right here tells us that Mordecai had inside information as to what was going on with Haman. Remember, because he worked at the king's gate, he had a place at the king's gate, that he had a place of prominence within the government of the fortress of Susa. So he must have had inner dealings, inner workings to where he could get inside information, like the amount that Haman had offered to pay Xerxes in order to kill the Jews. So he had connections within the king's court. So that's very important to know. Verse 8, Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa, ordering their destruction, so that Hathach might show it to Esther, explain it to her, and command her to approach the king, implore his favor, and plead with him personally for her people. Why did Mordecai have a copy of this decree? And what does the fact that he possessed it suggest? It suggests that he was a person of some influence and importance in Xerxes' kingdom, which we just discussed. Notice that Mordecai does not just give Hathach a statement of the imminent danger of the Jews, but he is very specific, substantiating his claim by explaining the price on the head of the Jewish race and the written decree to carry out the deadly deed. This clear evidence was provided to Esther so that the monumental decision Mordecai called her to make would be based on a firm foundation of solid evidence regarding Haman's plot to destroy all the Jews. Essentially, Mordecai knew what he was going to be asking of Esther. He knew what was coming. He knew what the rules of the kingdom were. And he knew what she would be up against.
Yeah, I recently had a pastor talk about both Mordecai and Esther, and it really resonated with me because he was talking about the need for more Spirit-filled believers to get into the political sphere.
Yeah.
Because he said it happens on the inside. Nehemiah was able to blow out because he was on the inside.
He was the cupbearer.
Mordecai even was on the inside.
Yep.
Esther was on the inside.
Daniel
was on the
yep.
inside. Abraham had all these businesses, and when he, goes into different kingdoms and stuff, he's on the inside. So the change happens. Joseph is on the inside. So, this idea that we're just going to pray and hope somebody does the right thing.
Yeah.
Yes, we need to pray, and yes, we need to also be on the inside.
Yeah.
And so, that's why we took the hill.
Yeah, that's why you and I stormed the state capitol.
Yeah, with not great shoes.
No.
But, if you are in a place where you have a position or can either further your position, ask the Lord about that and then go do it, because not everybody is in a position where they can be on the inside. So it may be that God has put you there for such a time as this.
Yeah.
And everything that God has given us, we have to steward, and that includes our positions.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, that's a great word. And I hate the narrative, just to elaborate on what you're saying. I hate the narrative that the church needs to stay out of politics.
Absolutely.
I hate that.
Someone's religious beliefs are getting legislated.
And we have the truth.
Yeah.
And we're told in Isaiah that the government rests on his shoulders.
Yeah.
And of the increase of his government and of his peace, there will be no end.
Yeah.
They didn't say of his government, there will be no end. They said of the increase of his government, there will be no end. Meaning his government is always on the move. It's always growing. Yeah. And I just feel like the church Christians need to get up and get involved.
Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily look like, probably for you, running for office, for state representative or whatever. But hey, what about school board?
Yeah.
The people in the school board are, really dictating what our children are learning. Is it something in your city council or, something in the local government? I tell you what, if you think that, things are corrupt in Washington, D.C., what's happening over at your local city hall is probably the most corrupt, because that's not on Fox News or CNN. Right. Nobody's reporting on that. That happens in the shadows, my friend. So, those places in your local governments, definitely probably have more corruption. Because nobody's paying attention to them.
Yeah. And so that's good insight, and that's a good call for the people of God to get involved, because
get on the inside.
God's people in this case would not have been saved had there not been someone in a prominent position in the king's court.
Right. On both Esther and Mordecai's side. Mordecai had to be on the inside enough to receive the decree. Receive a written copy of it. To your point, it's not like they had the printing press and they were making thousands of these copies.
Right, or they could go on the internet and just look it up and read it.
They probably just had a few per province.
Yeah.
And so Mordecai had to be in a place of prominence in order to receive it. And of course, Esther really had to be in a place of prominence to go and petition the king, which we'll obviously get to. But it required both of them to be on the inside.
Yeah, it did. A man and a woman, by the way.
Yes.
Okay.
Working together.
Yep, Azering side by side. Well, let's just bring it back.
Okay.
Azer Conegdo. Okay, verse 11. So now Esther is responding to Mordecai through Hathach, the eunuch, and this is her response. All the royal officials and the people of the royal provinces know that one law applies to every man or woman who approaches the king in the inner courtyard and who has not been summoned: the death penalty. Unless the king extends the golden scepter, allowing that person to live. I have not been summoned to appear before the king for the last 30 days. So this is a very actually important law and necessary law, should I say, from the king. Because the way to overthrow governments and kingdoms at this time was to kill the king. If you could kill the king, if you could kill the leader, now you're in charge. Okay, so this law was put in place in order to protect the king's life from would-be assassins, and this practice prevailed. So seemingly, if you came to the king without being summoned and he deemed you safe or acceptable, he would extend his scepter to you, which was a sign of his kingly authority, only to those whom he knew and from whom he welcomed a visit. So, even if he knew you and he didn't, but he didn't welcome you for a visit right then, if he didn't extend his scepter, you would die. You would die. So no one went and saw the king unsummoned, because you don't know what kind of a mood he's in. You don't know how much he's been drinking. We don't know. I mean, he could know you, but he doesn't want to see you right now. You don't get the golden scepter, you're out. So, no, you don't go visit the king without being summoned. And the fact that Esther had not seen the king in 30 days makes it clear that the marriage between Xerxes and Esther was no partnership. This was not we're going to azer side by side. We're going to complement one another. You know, I'm here to support you. You're here to support me. This was not that kind of marriage, because remember, the only reason she got chosen to be queen in the first place was because she was a virgin. She was beautiful. Okay? And apparently she was good in bed on the first night, and the king summoned her back. Like, those are her qualifications as far as he's concerned. So no, he's not inviting her in to talk about any kind of foreign policy or make legislation for the kingdom. She's not in on any of that. She's in her harem, being taken care of, coming to the king only when he summons her. She served one purpose, and that was to be beautiful. Xerxes was having his sexual needs fulfilled by other women. Okay, remember, he had a harem of his own. He had concubines. He was fine. Esther did not have a voice or any kind of authority as far as the king was concerned. So she's saying here, hey, Mordecai, lest ye forget, here's where I stand. Yeah, I've got a crown on my head, but that's only because I'm pretty. I have no authority, no position, no voice, no autonomy, no agency in this kingdom here at all. I go see him when I'm summoned, and I leave when I'm told to leave, and that's it. That's welcome to my life. So she's letting Mordecai know exactly where she stands and exactly what she would be up against. Verse 13, Mordecai told the messenger to reply to Esther, Don't think that you will escape the fate of all the Jews because you are in the king's palace. This implies that somehow Mordecai believes it would become known that Esther was a Jew. Certainly the fact that Mordecai's ethnicity was now known makes it plausible that those who knew Esther was his daughter or his adoptive daughter would make or had already made that connection. We know, for example, that Hathach, the eunuch, was aware of Esther's ethnicity. So it would only be a matter of time before that information leaked out. And so Mordecai is telling her, hey, just because you're secluded in your harem in the palace doesn't mean you're going to escape this, sister. Like, you're a part of this too. Verse 14, this one of the most famous verses, I think, in the Bible, maybe. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place, but you and your father's family, which is me, will be destroyed. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. God will accomplish his sovereign purposes even if his servants refuse to obey his will. If we disobey God, he will find someone else who will obey in order to accomplish his purposes, because he is God and his will happen. Period, point blank. He is God. He will do what he wills to do. And if we don't fall in line in obedience and get on board with that, there will be someone else who will. A.W. Tozer compared God's sovereign purposes to an ocean liner or a big cruise ship leaving New York City bound for Liverpool, England. So just think of this big ocean liner, this big cruise ship leaving New York going for England. The people on board the ship are free to do as they please, but they aren't free to change the course of the ship. The mighty liner of God's sovereign design keeps its steady course over the sea of history, writes Tozer. God moves undisturbed and unhindered toward the fulfillment of those eternal purposes which he purposed in Christ Jesus before the world began. His will be accomplished. So Mordecai is saying, hey, you've got an opportunity to join the will of the Lord here. You've got an opportunity to be a part of this, is what he's telling Esther. I love this passage in Jeremiah 31, 35 through 37. It says, this is what the Lord says. The one who gives the sun for light by day, the fixed order of moon and stars for light by night, who stirs up the sea and makes its waves roar. The Lord of armies, Jehovah Sabaoth, we've learned that, is his name. If this fixed order departs from before me, this is the Lord's declaration. Only then will Israel's descendants cease to be a nation before me forever. This is what the Lord says. Only if the heavens above can be measured and the foundations of the earth below explored, will I reject all of Israel's descendants because of all they have done. This is the Lord's declaration. So this is what the prophet Jeremiah is saying. The day that the sun, the moon, and stars cease to be fixed in their orbit or in their places in space, they fall from the sky. Night becomes day, day becomes night, up becomes down, down becomes up. As soon as we can measure the heavens, and think about the technology that we have right now. We're more technologically advanced with measuring outer space than we've ever been before. And the Bible says when the heavens can be measured is when God will reject Israel. We're over 2,000 years past when this was written, and we're more technologically advanced than we've ever been. We still can't measure the heavens. The more we try to measure it, the more we realize it's unmeasurable. And what Jeremiah is saying here is when the heavens can be measured is when God will forget about his people Israel, when he'll just let them go.
You know what else is interesting about this verse? Is the foundations of the earth. In other translations, it talks about the firmament here.
Yeah.
And so this is what the flat earthers use to say that it's that flat earth is biblical.
Oh, okay. Got it. Oh, how fun. Are you
Yeah.
a flat earther?
This is what I told our little brother at Christmas that just made him lose his mind.
I know, you told him, because we were sitting at dinner at Christmas time, and you and him got into a really heated political.
It wasn't heated.
It was. And so me and your husband Jake, and then our sister-in-law Amber, we just went to the other side of the table and we're like, hey, we're gonna just come down here and talk about fun things.
Well,
like, hey, y'all want to talk what food? Let's talk about what food we like, because y'all were in deep on the politics.
Well, because the first thing he asked, and then I answered, he was like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
He goes, what's the craziest thing you believe? And I said, I'm only 99% sure that
you said 90. I'm only 90% sure that.
Okay, I'll modify. 99% sure that the earth is round. And this made him go, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Well, there's some compelling arguments.
I don't think there is. I think you're wrong.
99%.
Okay.
Earth is round, 99%. But there's that 1% I'm like, yeah, I could be open.
Convince me.
Right.
Let's talk about it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I could tell you what didn't happen. Mm-hmm. The moon landing.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't believe in the moon landing either.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm with you there.
But anyways,
Yeah.
I digress.
Yeah.
But this is one of the verses that the flat earthers
use.
Yeah.
Well,
like, see, it says it in the Bible.
Yeah. Well, it's also a great mirror into how the Lord feels about Israel, because like Mordecai said, like, God's will be accomplished, and God's will is that his people Israel are his chosen people, and through this chosen people will come the Messiah, and the Messiah has not come yet. And so Mordecai is like, we're not going to be annihilated. God will send somebody to save us, Esther, but maybe it's you.
Yeah.
Maybe it's you. Do you want to get on board with this? If it's not you, God will send somebody else, but we're going to perish because we didn't get on board with the will of God. And here in Jeremiah, it's saying, as soon as we can measure the heavens, as soon as we've figured out all of outer space, that's when God's going to forget about Israel. That's when God's going to forget about his covenant people. And what I'm saying is, the more we look at outer space, if you guys follow NASA, do you follow NASA on Instagram?
Oh, no, but I'm going to.
And I think you can follow the Hubble telescope as well.
Oh, yeah.
It is unbelievable. The images that they're capturing are just so gorgeous.
Yeah.
But the more, again, the more they find, the more they realize, the less we know. And so it's never ending. God will not give up his covenant with his people. A scholar by the name of Morris said this familiar verse clearly expressed the strong confidence held by Mordecai that not only in the divine calling and everlasting covenant of God with the Jews, but also in his providential control of the circumstances surrounding them. In order to provide deliverance to God's people in their hour of greatest need, an obscure Jewish orphan girl had been made queen of the greatest pagan empire in the world.
Yeah.
A Jewish orphan girl, obscure from birth, is now the queen of the greatest pagan, or take out pagan, just the greatest empire in the world. Oh, who happens to be pagan? Mordecai knew. This is it, Esther.
Yeah.
Perhaps you've been called into this kingdom for such a time as this.
Yeah.
Charles Spurgeon said this. This is kind of a long quote, but I loved it, and so I want to read this excerpt to you. This is from his book, A Good Start, a book for young men and women. And it really spoke to me, so I want to read this to you guys. We are very much in our position as a church, as Esther was to the Jews. If she did not do her part, Mordecai told her God would do it by somebody else and put her away. And so it is with us. If we lag and loiter in work for Christ, he will put us away as a Christian church. Not from his eternal love, for he will never do that, but from our position of honor and usefulness. Every child of God is where God has placed him or her for some purpose. And the practical use of this first point is to lead you to inquire, for what practical purpose has God placed each of you where you now are? You have been wishing for another position where you could do something for Jesus. Do not wish anything of the kind, but serve him where you are. If you are sitting at the king's gate, there is something for you to do there. If you were on the queen's throne, there would be something for you to do there. Do not ask to be either gatekeeper or queen, but whichever you are, serve God therein. Esther did well because she acted as an Esther should. And Mordecai did well because he acted as Mordecai should. I like to think God has put each one of us in the right place, even as a good captain well arranges the different parts of his army. And though we do not know his battle plan, it will be seen during the conflict that he has placed each soldier exactly where he or she should be. Our wisdom is not to desire another place, nor to judge those who are in another position. But each one being redeemed with the precious blood of Jesus should say, Lord, what would thou have me to do? For here am I, and by thy grace I am ready to do it. Forget not then the fact that God in his providence places his servants in positions where he can make use of them. In other words, whether you're a Mordecai at the king's gate or an Esther on the queen's throne, be an Esther, be a Mordecai.
Yeah.
Or you're a eunuch entrusted with very confidential, specific information, and you need to be found trustworthy and faithful, then you be that eunuch. You convey important messages that need to be conveyed. Whatever it is, whatever God has called you to do, we can all echo Mordecai. Who knows? Perhaps you have come into your position for such a time as this. I mean, I really do feel that way about Janie with all of the lobbying that you're doing through the Texas Restaurant Association down at the Texas Capitol. Like, you were put into your position for such a time as this.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because, I mean, childcare in general in Texas is so expensive. Like, we're top 3 for the most expensive as a per capita type of expense with the median household income. And it mostly affects the restaurant industry. So we're the largest private employer in the state of Texas as well. And it's like, first, you have to have somebody to speak out on it who is a restaurateur and a mother.
Yeah.
And so that's
a very small.
There's not very many. And the reason there's not very many is because childcare is so expensive.
Right. So, that's a very small sample group there.
Right. So, this is why it is. Like, I've been put here in order to do this. And while this doesn't necessarily affect me, because I have childcare,
Yeah.
and so whether we get something passed or not, it really probably won't affect me personally.
Yeah.
But I'm the one that's been in the position to be able to speak out on it.
Yeah. And I feel that way for myself, just for advocating and speaking about women in ministry.
Right.
And again, it doesn't even necessarily, I don't want to even say it affects me. It doesn't. I'm not on staff at a church anywhere where I am or am not allowed to teach or preach or anything like that. So it's not like it directly affects me now where I am, but it has affected me growing up. It affected me in different places in the past where we've served. But even more than that, like, I feel like I've been looking into scripture, and I'm starting to read and study and see, like, hey, I don't think that everything we've been taught might be accurate. And maybe I can say this now because I'm not on staff at a church, and it's like, I have maybe a little bit more of a freedom to teach these truths or whatever, but I do feel like someone needs to say it.
Yeah.
And I know that there are a lot of women in Christian ministry who are saying the same thing, and I love that. I think we need more, not less of that. But in my little sphere of influence, whatever that is, I just want to make sure, like, we all know what the Bible actually says, like what we have not only permission to do, but we're mandated to do. We have a commissioning from Jesus Christ himself. So that's something that I feel like, who knows, but maybe you've come here for such a time as this. Okay, well, yeah, whatever that looks like, I'm not saving an entire nation here, But if I can encourage a few women to step into their calling, then I've done that. Then that's my goal. It's a little hinge in a large door. I'm okay to be a little hinge, and honored to do that. So yeah, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, ladies, who knows? But maybe you've been put in that position for such a time as this, and we believe in you, and I think the Lord does too. So I just want to finish up this chapter here. Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. He said, "Go and assemble all the Jews who can be found in Susa and fast for me. Don't drink or eat for 3 days, night or day. I and my female servants will also fast in the same way. After that, I will go to the king, even if it is against the law. If I perish, I perish." We're going to talk about this fasting and praying next week, okay? So this is very important that she calls for fasting and prayer. And this is going to lead us into our lesson for next week. And then verse 17 says, "So Mordecai went and did everything Esther had commanded him to do." It is at this point, it is in verse 16, verse 17, that we now see a pivot as to who's in charge.
Yeah.
Who's taking the reins? Who's taking the lead for delivering the Jewish people? Mordecai walked so Esther could run.
Yeah.
Because Esther is now like, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm in charge now. This is where we see her step into her calling as a queen, as a leader. She says, okay, I'm going to tell you what. I need everyone to go pray and fast for 3 days. Everybody, your servants, everyone, do not eat, do not drink. You're going to fast and pray. And then after that, I will go to the king, even if it is against the law. If I die, I die. If I perish, I perish. And then Mordecai does everything that Esther commanded. This is the part of the story where Esther says, okay, I have come into this kingdom for such a time as this. I have been put here on purpose, for a purpose. I do have a calling on my life, and it is to save these people, and I will do this whether I die or not. It takes, I believe, all of us getting a hold of the calling of our lives, again, whatever it is. Once we say we are willing to die, and that might mean physically, but I think more for us, especially in America, it means we have to crucify our flesh. When we say, I will crucify my flesh, it is not I, but Christ who lives in me. If I perish, I perish. Take away any part of flesh in my body so that I am living by the Spirit. That is when we step into our calling. When we say, my pride, my flesh, I want nothing to do with this. There's a humility there. There is a humility in saying, if I perish, I perish, to where now after Esther humbling herself, there's an elevation there. She does not elevate herself, though. The Lord elevates her to do great things for the kingdom. But the humility came first. The dying to herself came first. If I perish, I perish. That's what has to happen with us in order for us to truly step into the calling that God has for us in his kingdom. Whether it be great or small, but it's not small. There are no small parts. There are no small callings, okay? Yeah. So there has to be a moment for all of us where we say, if I perish, I perish. There's too much at stake here. People's lives hang in the balance. People's eternities hang in the balance. God is going to save his people. God is going to save whom he will save. God's kingdom is going to advance no matter what. So I have to decide, am I going to get on board with that, or am I going to shrink back? Because God's will be accomplished. So am I going to step into the calling that he has for my life? Am I going to step into the position that he's put me in for on purpose? by crucifying my flesh, by being willing to say, if I perish, but Lord, I will do what you've called me to do. That's the point that we have to get to in our lives in order to fully step into the calling that God has for us. There's a humility. There has to be a crucifying of the flesh. There has to be an acknowledgement and an awareness of the fact that people's eternities hang in the balance. People's lives hang in the balance, and God's will be accomplished whether or not we get on board with it. But boy, I want to be on board.
Yeah.
I want to be a part of it.
Me too.
And if I perish, I perish.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. You've not talked a lot this episode.
I kind of did earlier.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. I guess so. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I'll add it on Thursday.
Oh, okay. You're saving it.
Yeah.
I get it. So that's it. Sister, maybe you have come into the kingdom. Your position in the kingdom for such a time as this. Are you going to do what God has called you to do? Are you willing to say, if I perish, I perish? That's difficult to say. But once you're able to say that, woo boy, Esther was in charge. And she said, all right, y'all are answering to me now. Because I'm willing to perish.
Yeah.
I'm willing to put myself out there for the cause of God's people, for the sake of God's people. And there was some prayer and fasting that happened. And then she said, all right, y'all are listening to me now. And it gets fun. It gets real fun. Esther was one smart cookie.
Yeah, she was.
I mean, she really had a strategy. And I mean, she used her brain and her looks. She used it all.
Yeah.
And the Lord used her in great ways. So that's fun. We're back on Thursday with meditation and memorization, right, Janie?
That's right.
Okay, can't wait. Well, we'll see you back here on Thursday. We love you, sisters. Sisters with Swords is produced and edited by Holly Knight. Original music by the Minister of Funk and Husband of the Year, Bradley Knight. Artwork by Holly Knight. And dinner tonight will also be provided by Holly Knight. Please subscribe and share this podcast with your friends, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Sisters with Swords. We're cheering you on, sister. Go wield your sword.